Have you guys ever wanted to build your own floor cabinets? Take a look at this floor cabinet behind me. I built this, and it really isn't as hard as you might think it is. So if you have an interest in building your own custom cabinets, you're gonna wanna stay tuned for the rest of this video. In the rest of this video, I'll touch on the tools and materials you'll need, a design plan for a cabinet like this, my process of constructing a custom cabinet and finishing, the time it takes, my overall experience, and then also give you guys some comparison and pricing to building versus buying. In my pantry project, I really wanted to build my own because I searched and searched in all of the box stores and I just couldn't find anything that was reasonably priced or modernly aesthetic. The box stores have a lot of traditional looking cabinets that have that fake drawer at the top that doesn't function as a drawer and it has no utility. You guys know what I'm talking about? I don't know why that's even an aesthetic whatsoever. Also, they're generally insanely expensive and you can't truly get what you want. So I figured, why not give it a shot myself? So to start this project, I'm taking the measurements to my 4x8 red oak plywood in 3/4 inch thickness, and I'm starting to get these cut down into more manageable pieces. I went with this red oak plywood because it is pre-finished and sanded on both sides, which makes it great for custom cabinetry, painting, and stain. You can also use different plywoods. I know a lot of people use birch when it comes to making custom cabinets. Whatever plywood you decide to go with, my recommendation is to make sure both sides are pre-finished and sanded so you have a smooth surface for finishing. Now, to get these pieces cut down, I am using a table saw. I don't own one, so I rented one from a local hardware store. And I'm not gonna lie, guys, this is my first time using a table saw and the tool is a little intimidating. So here are a few things I recommend researching before using a table saw. If you have a circular saw, you can also use that to cut plywood. You will need to know how to cut a straight line or have a Craig Rip Cut to help you cut straight lines. I cut these pieces down to size according to my design plan, and my design plan is very simple. Let's take a look at the standard size of a floor cabinet. So a typical floor cabinet is 24 inches deep by 36 inches high, and the width can vary depending on the space that it needs to go into. Now, my cabinet is going to have those exact dimensions with a 42 inch width. So I'm going with the standard cabinet dimensions here, 42 inches wide by 36 inches high and 24 inches deep. But before I actually show you how I assembled the main contents of the cabinet, known as the cabinet carcass, I think it's important to make the decision in your design plan if you're going to create a separate base, as I am here with 2x4s, or if you're going to cut the sides and the bottom to incorporate the toe kick. I would say either way you decide is completely fine. I do think that using a jigsaw to cut the toe kick out of the bottom and the sides of the plywood does use less material, as in you wouldn't have to buy the 2x4s, cut the 2x4s down and make a completely separate base. The reason I chose to make my base out of 2x4s, I would say, is solely because of the inexperience when it comes to cabinet making. This is the first cabinet that I've ever constructed, and in my head at the time, it kind of just made sense to make the base and then make a cabinet for the top of the base and connect them together. I do think with my next cabinet, I will try the latter option of cutting the base out of the plywood to save on material. Okay, let's start constructing the main components to the cabinet body. I purchased a Craig pocket hole jig to assemble my cabinet pieces. Now, a pocket hole jig is not necessary to construct cabinets, but it really does make it a lot easier. It allows you to conceal your hardware, fill holes if needed, and it really just gives you a flawless finish. Now, specifically for my pantry project, I have 3 walls in my pantry, so when I put this cabinet into my pantry, you're not going to be able to see the outside of the cabinet body whatsoever. So in my design plan, I made sure that all of the pocket holes would be on the outside of the cabinet body. The pocket hole placement is something that you should keep in mind and work into your design plan. Now, to connect each piece of the cabinet together, I'm using a fair amount of wood glue in between each piece of plywood, and then I'm taking 90-degree angle clamps and holding each piece of wood together until I'm able to take the 1 1/4 inch pocket hole screws and drill those through both pieces of wood. Also, I just want to note these 90-degree angle clamps that I'm using for this project, I do not recommend. I went with something a little bit cheaper and I wholeheartedly regret it. These things were not easy to use. I do think that there's many more products that are better and easier for this type of project. Once I had both of the side pieces for the cabinet connected to the bottom, I went ahead and started connecting the support pieces. Now for this cabinet, I had 4 support pieces and I used them out of the extra pieces of plywood, cut them down, and I didn't worry too much on the width of these pieces, just as long as they fit in the area that I needed them to. So one tip here, make sure you don't throw your scrap pieces of plywood out because they do come in handy. So let me explain where these pieces go and why. One piece I'm using for the bottom of the back, another will be used at the top of the back, another will be used at the back of the top, and another support piece will be used at the front of the top. Hopefully that makes sense. Essentially what you're trying to do is support the cabinet so there's no movement or risk of collapse, and then it'll also support whatever countertop you decide to go with. We are just about done. The last thing we will need to do is install the backing. And wow, this is actually starting to look like a functional cabinet, you guys. I was so impressed with myself at this point that I just had to take a step back and look at my handiwork. I mean, look at this cabinet. This is an exciting day, you guys. I'm finally to the point where I can bring the framework and the cabinet carcass into my pantry and install in this space right behind me. I'm super excited. I think this project has gone amazingly so far, and I can't wait to get this installed, attached to the framing, and paint today. And I'm super excited to share this with you. Let's get this base installed. So you will need a stud finder. And for my last project, I actually went out and purchased a stud finder that can find the stud on center. And so that's what I'm using here. You're gonna need a drill. You're gonna need 3 to 3.5 inch cabinet screws. And you're also gonna need a level and possibly shims. I did buy shims, but for my case specifically, I didn't end up needing to use any. The base just happened to be level. I don't know if I just got really lucky or what, but I would suggest having shims on hand just in case, because that is not the case with every cabinet project. So once I found the studs, I marked the studs on the 2x4 base, and then I took 2 of the cabinet screws and drilled those screws directly into the framing of the wall. This attached the framing of my cabinet directly to the wall, and throughout this entire process, I'm making sure it's level on all 4 sides. Here is the moment of truth. I have a feeling this is gonna take some play getting in here, especially when I'm by myself. It's a tight one. It was like an exact fit. Come on, slide in there like the glove you are. Oh my goodness. Just wow. I don't think it could fit any better than that. So for the back of the cabinet, I am using a 1/4 inch plywood cut down to size. For this being my first cabinet, I do think that I installed this incorrectly. I almost wish that I would have installed it on the back side, but I was a little nervous about the support beams being able to show through the inside of the cabinet. So I installed it on the inside of the cabinet to give it a nice finished look. I'm not really sure what the correct option is here, so if you guys know, please let me know in the comment section down below. Overall, I think the cabinet still turned out absolutely wonderful, and I suppose I'm okay with this for being my first build. For paint, I went with Pittsburgh Grand Distinction in a satin finish. The color is peppercorn black. I love the way that this turned out. I believe I did 2 coats and then I applied the edge banding. Edge banding is super easy to apply. You essentially just buy it and apply with an iron, and it comes with heavy adhesive on the back and sticks on to all of the unfinished edges of your plywood. I highly suggest that you do this before installing and finishing because you will need to sand your edges off. This was a learning experience for me, so I went ahead and painted and then applied the edge banding, and since then I've had to sand and repaint again. So this has had 3 coats of the black paint, and then when it was all said and done, I put on a couple coats of clear polyurethane to really just finish and seal everything up and help this finish last for as long as possible. Let's talk through pricing and the time it took me to complete this project. So I have about $80 invested in plywood, $9 in the 2x4s, about $30 in hardware for the doors, $50 in paint because I bought a gallon, which I did not go through all of that, and $30 for the tool rental. Now altogether for pricing, that puts me at a little under $200. And then to cut all of the pieces, I have about 4.5 hours into it, and the assembly took me roughly about 15 hours for it being my first time. So I have close to 20 hours invested into this project. I would say for 20 hours invested in this project and having less than $200 spent compared to most of the ones that I've seen in the box store, I really think that this is worth it because I get exactly what I want, and I feel like it has a way more modern look. All right, if you guys made it this far, comment down below something new you learned today about creating and building your own custom cabinetry. Stay tuned for my next video. I have one more step in the completion of my pantry project, and in the next video, I will be showing you how to create and install custom floating shelves. So the floating shelves will be a light stained wood birch color, light oak, light birch color, kind of like this right above me. This is actually one of the floating shelves. This will not be the countertop for the cabinets. We're probably gonna do custom marble or quartz or something along those lines, but it'll look something like this, but a lot thicker. So stay tuned if you wanna learn how to install custom shelving or follow me along on my pantry renovation journey. Thank you guys so very much for watching. I always appreciate the love and support, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye. Oh, ow, it hurts. Don't record on your toes.